All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I've been going over the PowerPoint presentations for Murox ASP.NET 4.6 with C# 2015 6th edition for the AWD1111 or 1111 Web Databases, ASP.NET and Web Databases class. Again, we're up to Chapter 11, How to Work with Friendly URLs in Routing. This is one of those chapters where, believe me, I do not claim to at all be an expert in this. We want to use friendly URLs to provide for routing in a web application, use ASP.NET routing to provide for friendly URLs in a web app, combine the use of friendly URLs and ASP.NET routing in a web app, distinguish between a regular URL and a friendly URL, describe two benefits that you get from using friendly URLs, describe how friendly URLs store the parameters of a friendly URL and how you retrieve said parameters in a web app, describe 3 ways to change the default behavior of friendly URLs and when and why you might do that, describe the process for creating a route collection for ASP.NET routing, describe the differences between static and dynamic routing, describe the process for retrieving a route parameter from a friendly URL when using ASP.NET routing. Finally, describe the process for combining ASP.NET routing with friendly URLs. Now, I'm speaking for me. I'm not speaking for anyone else who will teach this class. But for me, this is one of those chapters that I am going to go over it right now. All right, we're going to start talking about it. That said, I'm not going to probably go over it in the actual class itself, all right? Or if we do, it'll be very limited. Okay, so ASP.NET offers routing features that allow you to have friendly URLs. When ASP.NET first added routing, you had to work with it manually in code. Now there is a friendly URL feature that provides a more automated way to add friendly URLs. So we learned both the older way of using code and the friendly URL way in here. We also learned how to use these 2 ways together. Now, back in Chapter 1, we talked about URLs. And remember that a URL consists of several parts. First, if we look at this URL right here, let's just look at this one first. We got the protocol, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So the protocol part is the HTTP://. Then we have the domain, which is HalloweenSuperstore.com. Then we have the path, which is order.aspx. And in this case, we also have a query string, which says that product ID of category 1. Well, this is kind of hard for a person to remember. So this URL that you see right here, which has been converted to a friendly URL, is a little bit easier to look at and to work with, and even probably more importantly, to remember. So in this second example, we're using the friendly URL where the data that's passed between the pages becomes part of the URL itself. One of the biggest benefits of using URLs, friendly URLs I should say, is SEO, or search engine optimization. All right, so you're making your URLs more friendly to the search engines, which will hopefully get you ranked higher on the search pages. In fact, friendly URLs are also known as SEO-friendly URLs. All friendly URLs get archived by search engines, but most search engines don't archive query strings in traditional URLs. All right, as we've already mentioned, they're also easier to read. So, how do you use this? Well, first of all, when you look right here, you can see if I can put in this and have it go where I want it to go, I don't have to remember all of this stuff. So the friendly URLs are going to make it easier for me to work with. And, again, let's face it, we all want that. All right? So, 2 ways to provide friendly URLs in ASP.NET Web Forms. One is to install and configure the friendly URLs feature. The other is to manually map routes using code. So if we want to add the friendly URLs, we install it via its NuGet package. So we want Microsoft.ASP.NET.friendlyURLs. So we can go to the same one that we were using in the last chapter. I removed all that stuff, as you can see, and I can right mouse click, choose Manage NuGet Packages, come into Browse. You've seen this before several times, and we've got Microsoft.ASP.NET.friendly URLs. Microsoft.ASP.NET. Well, it doesn't show it. Let's see. Let's type in friendly and see if it finds anything. Well, it's finding a bunch of stuff. I don't know if it's finding what we're looking for. Here's Microsoft Friendly URLs Core IT, which could very well be what this is changed to. I don't know. Friendly URLs Core DE, those are different languages. All of these look like they're in different languages. Microsoft Friendly URLs Core, a library that enables, okay, so that looks like it's it. All right, it looks like it's installed by default. All right, so what does that mean? It should mean that I can close this, and if we go back to our site master and we look at our site master, we did this before, we went to our site master CS file. Now, I don't see it here. That doesn't mean that it's not there. All right. But I can always come in and see if we can find it through the IntelliSense using Microsoft dot ASP.NET dot, notice there's friendly URLs, so it finds it. Semicolon. Okay? So I can put it in like that. Now, I believe that if for some reason it was included as part of one of these other packages, that putting it in like this isn't going to hurt anything. So in other words, you can have the same thing used in there twice. I don't know why you couldn't do that. This installs an app start folder in our route config with a route config.cs file. Do we have an app start folder? We don't. Well, that's kind of interesting. Maybe the one that I tried to put in wasn't the right one. I'm not sure. Hopefully you can see why probably with me I won't be going over this much in class. So it's got a friendly URLs and a friendly URLs core. So maybe it would, like I said, maybe it wasn't even the right one that I tried adding. I don't know. This, as it said, should be the route config class that's added to an app start folder. You need to add code to the global.asx file to make that work, and the code that you must add is actually right here, and it's shown on the middle of page 363. Now, again, we're working with routes, and a route is a URL pattern that's used in a friendly URL. All right? So what the friendly URL does, and this is mentioned on the bottom of page 365 in the book, once you install and set up friendly URLs, you don't need anything special to do to make them work. So some of the ones were shown here. So the friendly URL functionality automatically converts a traditional URL into a friendly URL. So something like this into this, something like this, pretty much, it knows where something should go, for lack of better words. So you don't have to map any routes or do anything other than set it up as we talked about before. The friendly URLs feature analyzes the segments of a friendly URL, and it determines which ones are parameters. And the ones that are parameters, it stores in a list of strings. And then you can use the get friendly URL segments method of the request object to get those. Now, So there's some work you have to do, but the bottom line is the stuff is set up for you. The friendly URLs, what it's going to do is, again, if you look at the stuff here, it uses what's called a resolver object called Web Forms Friendly URL Resolver, and it uses that to determine how it's going to handle the URLs. Now, if we go and we pop up to this, which is on page 389 in the book, on page 389, they show some of the ASP.NET code on the master page. So they're showing that in here. Now, starting with a tilde, which we haven't really talked about before, the tilde, for lack of better words, kind of means start from the root of the project. And they show some more code in here. Again, I don't feel comfortable enough. Now, I will say, I would strongly suggest that if you want to learn this better than the kind of way I'm showing it to you, you go out to msdn.microsoft.com, which is the Microsoft Developer Network page. And I'm going to come in here. I'm going to show you this in two ways. I'm going to type in here friendly, or try to type in here friendly, Friendly. Why is it doing that? Friendly URLs. All right. And that will get you started a lot better than I can. And if you don't want to do that, I may have not even mentioned this before, and shame on me if I have not. If you just go out to ASP.NET, that's Microsoft's ASP site. And there are videos and a lot of other stuff here. I should be able to search there for friendly URLs. Friendly URLs. Doesn't show real much. Some release notes. I just do a URL, do I get the same thing? No, then I get nothing. So we got more by going to the Microsoft Developer Network. And if you're still not happy, well, of course, we can Google it. ASP.NET friendly URLs. Here's, I don't know what this site is. But it's from a thing called Hanselman.com. But I will tell you, when I look down here, there's the NuGet gallery. That would be a great place to start. Okay? Doesn't look like it has much either, but you can at least look through there. Okay, let's jump back in. So a friendly URL should be used anytime a URL for a page is referred to in ASPX code. Now the code for this is shown on page 391 in the book. So it shows the C# code for this version of the shopping cart app that uses friendly URLs. Okay? We'll talk about this a little bit more in later chapters also. The last part of the chapter, I should say the last part, it's about the last 16 or so pages in the chapter, the last half, let's say, talks about the use of friendly URLs in the shopping cart app that also uses ASP.NET routing. So remember, there's two ways to do this. You can set up the friendly URLs, which does most of the work for you, so you'll have a minimum of C# code you have to add, or you can use ASP.NET routing, where you'll have to write more code. So when you use ASP.NET routing, you can map routes for URLs that don't depend on a directory structure, so you have more control, is what the author is saying. So these 2 pages that you saw right here, you can see the URLs in the address bar and the shop button drop down make it appear that products, order, and cart pages are in a shop directory. But if you look at the table, you'll see that that's not exactly the case. So in order to do this, again, we have to use ASP.NET routing as opposed to just using friendly URLs. When you use ASP.NET routing, you add the register routes method to the global AX file, or you can code it in a route config class that you create. Again, for lack of better words, this is kind of above my pay grade. I don't do a lot of work with routing and things like that, so it's not that this isn't important, all right? But you'd be much better off having somebody who could show you better. I understand what's happening. You're trying to make this not just SEO friendly, but you're trying to make this as friendly for anybody using it as possible. So not only will it be SEO friendly, but if somebody looks at a URL and it doesn't have a query string in it, rather than the query string, you're able to show the person right in the URL. It's going to make it much easier for them to understand. So in the book, on page 397, they show you how you can retrieve parameters from a URL when you use ASP.NET routing. And to do this, you use the values collection of a page's route data property. And that's what's shown in this first example here. Unlike friendly URLs, which, as we mentioned earlier, stores URL parameters in a list of strings, the values collection of the route data property stores items as objects. That means that when you retrieve them, you have to cast them into the correct type. The ASPX code for ASP.NET routing in the shopping cart app is shown in the book on page 399. Some of the ASPX code is shown there. The associated C# code is, some of it, again, is shown starting on page 401. Because the basic processing is the same as for friendly URLs, the author has chosen in there just to show the differences. Rather than retrieving the parameter from a URL segment, the page load event handler uses code like we looked at earlier to check if the values collection contains a product ID parameter. Other than that, the only difference is in the event handler that's executed when the user clicks the Add to Cart button. Rather than using an href method to create the friendly URL, the URL is just coded on the redirect method. again, you have more control over it. And the last part of the chapter, the last 2, 4, 6 pages of the chapter, talk about how it's possible for you to combine ASP.NET routing with friendly URLs. And starting on 402, the author says, in some cases, you'll use ASP.NET routing along with friendly URLs. For example, suppose you want to use a shop menu like the one you saw in the ASP.NET routing version of the shopping cart app, but you don't want to have to manually map non-custom routes. So when you use ASP.NET routing with friendly URLs, you can just map the custom routes for the ASP.NET routing in the register routes method. And they show you this on page 403. When you do combine these two together, you need to make sure that you call the enable friendly URLs method in the register routes method before you do any of the mapping. If you decide that you want to get ASP.NET routing to handle some or all of the URLs, all right, then you look at the code that's shown on page 405. So you can make ASP.NET routing, as they mentioned on the bottom of 405, handle most of the URLs for a page by overriding the convert to friendly URL method of the web forms friendly URL resolver class. Or you can do all of the URLs by overriding the convert to friendly URL and pre-process request methods. Again, I would suggest that you use friendly URLs as much as possible when you're starting on this, because this stuff is just not that easy when you look through it. All right, so that was a little hodgepodgey, but it got you started. It showed you some of the stuff that was in there. There was an explanation, albeit maybe not the greatest one you've ever heard. But we talked about friendly URLs and that feature to provide routing and friendly URLs in a web app. Also ASP.NET routing and how to work with friendly URLs with friendly URLs with ASP.NET routing and without it. So we talked about a regular URL, which had the query string, versus a friendly URL, which did not. We talked about the benefits of using friendly URLs. Those were SEO, search engine optimization, and also making it easier for the user to read. All right. And also that it works, a little bit easier for you, can result in code that's a little easier to work with. So we talked about friendly URLs, ASP.NET routing, how to use them separately and how to use them together. All right, and that's pretty much it for this chapter. When I come back, because this ends section 2 of our text here, so when I come back, I'm going to quickly go over the beginning of section 3, which is chapter 12, which is an introduction, which is all it is. All right, it's an introduction to database fundamentals. And I'll come back with that shortly.